She's a pharmacist, a wife, a mother, and now she can add author to her list. Join us in welcoming Dr. Lola Fashina, the author of Endless Chances. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Faye. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Of course. How are you feeling?
I'm good.
Are you excited? Are you nervous? How are you
Very
feeling?
excited. Very excited to be doing this. This is my official first interview, so I'm more than happy to be here.
Of course, first of many.
Amen.
We loved your book. Your book was great, and we are so excited to, introduce you to the world and get to know more about you.
Okay.
So, where are you from originally?
I was actually born in Baltimore, Maryland,
Wow.
but I was taken home as a child, I think maybe about age 2. So I pretty much grew up in Nigeria, and I didn't come back here until after I graduated college home. That's when I came back here. So born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria.
What was it like growing up, especially since you were technically born in the US? What was it like growing up in Nigeria?
I think growing up in Nigeria was very structured for me. I lived in a university environment. The kids were close, parents were very strict. Mom was very strict, dad was not so strict. So of course we broke most of the rules, but yes, it was very, very structured. And there was a inner desire to not fail or disappoint your parents is
Right.
what we all had in that environment that I grew up.
Based off what you're telling me, it seems that education was a big thing, growing up. So how did that play a role in, your socialization and how you decided to pursue education?
One of the things like in growing up in that environment, in a university campus environment, was like you wanted to make your parents proud because they were educators. And one of the things we saw in the older people before us was that they usually were what their father was. So there was this inner silent thing, like you needed to be either what your parents were or you needed to be better than what your parents were. You couldn't be the one of everybody else who wasn't doing well. So that kind of stuck with us, stuck with me and my siblings.
Right. So if that stuck with your siblings, then I'm assuming you were A plus, prefect everything in school, like you were just the best student. Or am I wrong?
Not so as early. I was not really, I thrived, I managed to do what I had to do. But again, when I got into college, and I did go to college in the north, I didn't go to college in Lagos, was when I partied really hard for a year. I partied Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, if it was possible. And then when I didn't get into my first choice, was my eye opener. I had to settle for my second choice in school, but I was lucky because my father was a chemist. Chemistry was my second choice. So I got into that, and that was the breaking point that made me kind of turn things up, That was the first time I could say I really knew how to study, to really know like, okay, I wanted to pass an exam and pass the exam. Before then, again, like I said, I was just,
Right.
kind of going with the flow. So
Right.
then, yeah.
That was the defining moment in your life
It
where it
was.
was like things have to change.
Yes.
Going from that point, not getting into your first choice and having to settle with your second choice, how did you get from there to eventually going to your first choice, which I believe is pharmacy?
Yes.
How did that happen?
The transition. So when I graduated in the north, I did my youth service in the north, and I just stayed there. Again, life was good. I was having a good time until my father showed up one day and knocked on the door and said, okay, 2 days, you have 2 days. You're going to pack your bags. You're going to come to Lagos. Your ticket is bought. You're going to go to the US and you will do something. And that was, and that's how I ended up here. When I came here, it was hard to find a job in chemistry. I just couldn't really find anything that, I just couldn't find it. So I worked, just kind of did lay jobs here and there. And I made up my mind I was going back to pharmacy school. I was going to be what I originally wanted to be. a pharmacist, and that's how I ended up in pharmacy school.
You have a lot of persistence, especially, given that you could have just chosen the easy route, but you decided that, you wanted more for yourself. How do you feel like that inner desire, that persistence has played a positive role in your life?
I've always been one who, when I want to do something, I stick with it. And because I'm the first of, that also has a driving motivation for me, not to disappoint my parents, not to kind of disappoint or lay the grounds for my siblings, because I figured if I can do it, then it's easier for them to think they can do it as well. So I've always had that, even when things are just never that easy. Even going into pharmacy school, the chemistry degree meant nothing. You needed to get your prerequisites. You needed to, and I had to do all that, and it took so many years to do it. But eventually it panned out, and I got in. Yeah.
Of course. So what I'm getting from what you have said is that with you, when you put your mind to something, that even if it's not easy, even if it's difficult, you are going to accomplish it. And that seems to me to be how you went from being a pharmacist to being an author, which I don't get how you get a straight line. It seems like there's stops and pivots in between, but I would definitely love to hear about how you went from, having this science background, this STEM background, to all of a sudden being an author. How did that happen?
So I always knew I wanted to write a book. When in pharmacy school, I loved pharmacokinetics. So I took every note, everything that came out of the professor's mouth, I wrote down. But slowly and surely, I graduated from school, had the kids, just life, and I was like, okay, maybe a romance novel would be a good thing to write. And I just always wanted to do it. It was on my bucket list. I wanted to write a book, and I thought about it. I didn't know what to write. And then I won't think about it for many years. And then one day I'm driving in traffic. There's so much traffic. I'm going to work. And the idea came. And I'm like, okay, I think this is it. I think this is the book I'm going to write. And that's how it started, just thinking about it in traffic.
Okay, shout out to 495.
Yes, 495.
Yes.
Actually, it was New Hampshire Avenue. And I don't know why, I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to get home.
Okay, but it's actually good that happened, because if that didn't happen, the idea for the book wouldn't have even came to fruition.
No. And I remember rushing home, and my daughter was home, and I said, Ronki, I have to tell you a story. And I told her the story, and she's like, I said, that's the idea of my book. And she's like, oh, I can read that, I like it. I was like, okay, good. And that's how it started.